You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. All right, everybody, welcome back. It is Friday's Finest, and we're all together again. The gang is all here. The gang is back, yes. And I'm a little bit more excited right now because I do not have to listen to Justin Fields coming to Atlanta. But James, who will be on with us in just a moment, we're going to have to be gentle with James today. An interesting thing happened on the way to the free agency board, and we'll talk about that and give James plenty of chances to go through it. Chip will be with us here in just a minute. We got a lot to talk about. Hey, it's amazing to me, folks, and Chip and I hit on this in the first part of the episode, I think. It's amazing to me how tone deaf Democrats have become about Israel and about immigration. It's really interesting that the far left has push the party to where they feel like they can't move. And this was pointed out to me the other night, and many of you have commented. I was on doing State of the Union last week, play-by-play, and I talked to one of the Democrats who was on with me. He made this comment. He said, now that Biden has shown that Trump is the Republican Party. And I stopped him right after he said that. I said, okay, if you're saying Trump is the Republican Party, then Biden is the Democratic Party. I said, let's you can't have that innuendo out there that Trump is a negative and he's the party of Republicans, and then not have Biden and own all of that Biden owns as well. And he sort of laughed. I honestly, folks, I've been on the podcast and I've been with y'all for and y'all see me on TV. The reporter who was there that night, I looked over at him as I said that, and if he had water in his mouth, he'd have spit it across the room. It was the most hilarious moment we've seen. So a lot going on, but we had free agency, we had the Oscars, Oppenheimer wins, Barbie undoubtedly didn't do too well. Okay, we'll talk about that as we go. And then we also got to talk about it after the break. There could be a new candidate lurking, could not be more of an outsider. But instead of the quarterback for the New York Jets, could it be Aaron Rodgers, VP? All of this here today on Friday's Finest. We're glad you're with us. After the break, we'll get started. Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times. Hey, everybody, Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank all of my listeners, the Great Doug Collins podcast listeners, for your continued support. To thank you, they're offering an overstocked clearance sale right now for the best price you ever use when you use the promo code Collins, COLLINS, and you get free shipping on the entire order. You get 50% off the MyPillow 2.0, the brand new flannel sheets that just arrived and won't last long. Get six-pack towel sets for only $29.98. and take advantage of the free shipping on large items like mattresses and mattress toppers. 100% made here in the United States and on sale for as low as $99. Everything is on sale, from the brand new kitchen tiles that have the same technology as the bath towels that actually absorb dog beds, blankets, couch pillows, and much, much more. To get the best specials ever, go to the mypillow.com, and use the promo code Collins, Collins, or call 800-986-3994 and use the same keyword Collins, Collins, and get free shipping on your entire order while supplies last. My Pillow products, thank you. Y'all go check them out. All right, we're back. We're after the break now. Chip, you're here. James is appropriately in a dark screen for the day after free agency. Chip, though, let's get started. We'll get to James. We're giving James a chance to warm up here. I made this comment in the opening, Chip, and I said that to me it's amazingly how tone deaf Democrats and look, Republicans have tone deaf places as well. Don't get me wrong. I think we do as well sometimes. But it is amazing with the polling showing immigration and the support that is historically there for Israel. It's interesting to me because, just earlier, just within the last 24 hours, Chuck Schumer goes to the floor of the U.S. Senate and basically calls for tampering and for overthrowing the Israeli government. I mean, that's, for lack of a better way to do it. Is that surprising to you 7 months out?
I would love to say yes, it is surprising to me. I mean, if you're just looking at this politically, yeah, it's very surprising. But when you peel back the onion a little bit and realize what the National Democratic Party has been about over the last 5 to 7 years, it's nothing but identity politics. And so you can't support a country like Israel that's strong on national defense and is waging an all-out war to extinguish Hamas, the terrorists that are Hamas. And then with regard to immigration and the situation at the border, if you're strong on border policies, you're quote unquote racist, and I mean that's the holy grail of Democratic politics right now, right? And so, it's just they can't, they're just stepping all over themselves to avoid. I mean, look what happened after the State of the Union, Doug. I mean, President Biden called Jose Ibarra the savage butcher, brutal murderer of Laken Riley in Athens, Georgia, called him an illegal, and then he apologized a day later.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, what got me, Chip, was, and again, knowing you and knowing, I wonder how long this person would have lasted in one of your campaigns or when the White House spokesman said he absolutely did not apologize. He did not. That was not an apology. The man said, "I regret saying what I said." That is an apology in any language.
Yeah, look, I mean, being White House spokesman for this president, you're put in that situation, time and time again. And, instead of answering the question and saying, no, I don't have any regrets. So what if he was undocumented? He came to this country and he committed a savage act of murder against our citizens. And I have absolutely no respect for somebody who wants to come in here and do something like that. Instead, he just went on defense and cowered in the corner like a baby and was like, yes, I regret calling him that. It was almost like he was hoping he didn't offend him. I mean, come on.
Well, it's just amazing, too, that, and again, I just was looking through some clips, and I was on an interview asked about this the other day, and it was interesting because they stopped. They said, well, no, we come with receipts. I think it was Harris Faulkner. She said, Harry, we come with receipts, and she played a clip, 2 or 3 clips of Obama and Chuck Schumer both saying illegal alien. Obama said it many times, and Schumer went as far as to say, we've got to quit calling them undocumented. They are illegal in this country. And it's like, I mean, it's just like brain cramps.
Doug, that kind of makes my point, right? I mean, that was in the past. That was when the Democrats weren't worried about language. If they did that, they would lose the mantle of the identity party, the identity politics party, and they can't do that. It's just too much in their DNA. It's too much in their fabric right now.
It is. Well, and it's also bad that because you and I both witnessed the Republican Party try its hand at identity politics, and we don't do it very well.
No. And they don't either. They just don't.
No.
They're too stupid to realize it.
Yeah, it's just bad as we go into it. Looking at it, Chip, as we talked about it last week, and I made this point, and I want to make a point here on the podcast because I want conservatives to turn out. And look, I get, and I made a post about this the other day. I said, look, it goes back to what we've dealt with all along. When primaries are over, Republicans have a choice, just like Democrats have a choice. You're either going to go with the party that most identifies with what you believe in. You may not agree with it all, but most identify, or you're going to either stay out or you're going to vote for the other one. And both parties are sort of at that point now with the Democrats, dealing with this sort of revolt from the left. You've got some of the Republicans. We had one of our reporters that you and I have dealt with over the years. I thought it was hilarious, and I sent it to you. I think one of the reporters at the AJC the other night, his first take on the election was, "Wow, all these people voted for Nikki Haley. There's a big division." And Trump won 73 or 74% or more here in Georgia the other night, and they focused on that. The issues though that are coming up, I think is going to be more based on, and I'm going to say this, I think this is going to be a long-term race that's going to stay close until the end, and whoever wins the last 4 weeks is going to win this race.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, we're a divided country. We have, we have people that, we know who they are, who are going to go out like they do every 4 years and support the Democratic nominee. We have people on the Republican side who are, going to go all in for Trump and always have. And there's a segment of this country that might not like the choices that they have for president, but doesn't that happen every 4 years? And, look, this is going to be a close election, and, it's going to just have some variations, polling spikes and decreases between now and November. But, I don't know, Doug, that we'll know for certain going into election night. I mean, I'm curious to see if, what the betting markets are going into election night. I bet one candidate's not any more than a 65% favorite, which is, which is a close race, right? I mean, it's a real close race if it can go either way. So I think you're spot on with that assessment.
Well, I think so too. And one of the things I encourage conservatives is look, I know it sounds good to have a full audience, and look, as being a candidate, it's always it helps you up. You go into a room that's full, you get excited. You go into a room that's about half full or not there, you really question life. Okay. And as someone who's had his name on the ticket many, many times, I know what that feels like. You walk into a room and, it's not as many as you thought were going to be there. And you take it personal in some ways that you've done something wrong or people don't like you and this kind of crap. And it just gets in your head. But we've gotten to where I think one of the things I wanted to say, I'm glad to see the turnout. I was with the President Trump last weekend in Rome. Talked to him. He was in good spirits. He gave his speech, by the way, had some of the best lines and best writing of any speech I've seen from him so far. He likes to go off and tell stories. And he actually, Chip, for the first time I've ever heard him say this, he said it in the middle of the speech the other night. He went into it and he goes off script. And you know how he does this. And you can tell when he's off script. It's very obvious when he is. And he said, I'm off. Basically, he said, I'm off script. He said, but y'all come and y'all wait in these lines and people are outside. He said, I've got to give you something more than just, basically he said 45-minute speech. He said, that's why I tell stories. And I said, I've never heard him actually just say it. And he told a story about Arnold Schwarzenegger and everything else. He just went off. But, I mean, he had a line in the speech the other night that I think is the themes are starting to build. I'm starting to see the Susie Wiles, Chris LaCivita influence into this campaign. And they've sort of decided he's going to be Donald Trump. But if we can get him focused in these areas here, then we're going to make our message. And one of the lines, and I'd love to get your comment on this, he made a great line out of the State of the Union. Whoever wrote this was spot on. He said, the other night, Joe Biden was yelling at America when in actuality, America should have been yelling at Joe Biden. That was a good line.
Really good line. Yeah, really good line. And think, Doug, you'd mentioned, the influence that Susie and Chris LaCivita and Jason Miller and that team have had on him. I mean, there's been no turnover in this race so far. I mean, 8 years ago at this point in time, he was on campaign manager number 3, maybe. And then, 4 years ago, there was, a decent amount of turnover. I mean, the nucleus of Trump's campaign staff today is exactly what it was when he, got in the race a little less than a year ago. And so, yeah, I think that's a great thing. And I think that gives, that gives people that, might have been concerned about, a third Donald Trump candidacy, but don't like Joe Biden and want to see, Trump be successful and Biden lose. It's got to give them it's got to make them feel good, that this campaign looks a lot more stable. And it looks a lot more, it looks a lot more grown up, candidly. And I think that's a good thing and not a bad thing.
Yeah, I do too. I think it was really good. And I think the president relishes. I think when he's on point, you and I talked about this over a year ago when we started first seeing him go to like East Palestine and these places where he's in the mode and he does that. He's hard to beat when he's handing out pizzas. When he's in that mode, he's just extremely hard to beat. And I think that's where Joe Biden obviously cannot do. But did it surprise you? And we're talking crowd strength here for just a sec, because a lot of the Democratic operatives in Atlanta, and I do as well. I was down on the House floor in Georgia today honoring David Ralston, who was a former speaker, a good friend of mine, yours, and a lot of folks. And he passed away almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago. But I was down on the floor of the House, and I was talking to a lot of my Democratic colleagues, which, by the way, is the difference you see in state houses as opposed to the U.S. House. We were talking. But did it surprise you, knowing that Trump was going to be doing a fairly large rally in Rome, Georgia, that they put him – I mean, there wasn't 150 people at the Biden rally. You can't tell me that Democrats won't show up. I mean, it's almost like they intentionally keep this in this way.
Yeah, they made it kind of an insiders event, right? With elected officials and operatives and all of that, right? So it was weird at Pullman Yards, and it was like they wanted to check the box to get into the state and to get on the TV networks and ruin traffic for everybody in Metro Atlanta. Like that doesn't happen every day. And there was just no energy, right? And look, I mean, the Trump rally up in Rome, sure, it was, it might have had, it wasn't outside at an airport hangar, didn't have 10 or 12,000 people there, but none of that matters. I mean, look, I worked for Herschel Walker in the general election last cycle, Doug, and we drew crowds exponentially better than anybody running in the Democrat side or the Republican side. It wasn't even close. But he was the only Republican on the ticket that didn't win. And, Brian Kemp didn't draw crowds like Herschel Walker did, but he got a lot more votes than Herschel Walker did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes, we all look too much into it, right?
And that's why I wanted you to make that point, Chip. I mean, because like I said, I want us to focus on having a large turnout on the either early voting or on voting day. I want us to be voting. That's my key. One thing here, and I want, as we got folks from all across the country who listen to this podcast, an interesting thing's happening here in Georgia, and I would love to know in some other states if this is yours. So go to the DougCollinsPodcast.com, hit the email button. We'd love to hear from you. We're breaking it down right now, Chip, but so far we've gotten about a quarter of the state, almost half of the state done. And something that I brought up to some of my folks who work nationally and some of the folks who are dealing with this presidential campaign is Georgia does not have a unifying, or they don't have the races that you and I both know generate the most. As much as we love the presidential race, a good hard-fought sheriff's race in a county is going to turn out more people. Okay, a down and dirty commissioner race is going to turn out a lot more people because they know these people individually. This is church, group turning out church group, little league team. I mean, parents, all this. We don't have a lot of that in Georgia this time. Trump's at the top of the ticket. We got some some judgeships that are statewide, but really nothing else. And when we look down into the sheriffs and county commissioners, state rep, state senate races, there's about 15 races in the state house, state senate side that'll be of any consequence come November, and very few of these others. What do you think from a political operative perspective? Do you have to take that into account, or do you just think this presidential race will overcome that in these counties, and frankly, about probably 40, 50 counties that have no race except the president on it?
Yeah, and look, for those of you listening that don't know, I mean, Georgia's got 159 counties. We have a lot of counties. Yeah. Doug's right. I mean, I can't think of, I can't think of a cycle where there were fewer candidates that qualify. I mean, I looked at the roster of candidates in the state Senate, both on the Republican and Democratic side, and I mean, it's thin, right? I mean, 12 Republicans didn't get opponents. At least 8 or 9 Democrats didn't get opponents. I mean, they're, gone are the days where, there were 7, 8, 9, 10 people qualifying a race.
Yep.
Doug, historically, I think that would make a big difference. But, we've, over the last 3 election cycles, the last 6 years, we have shattered voter turnout numbers. Shattered. And it's absolutely destroyed the argument that Stacey Abrams and the Democrats have made about voter suppression, so much so that Rob Manfred, after he took the All-Star game away from Atlanta, is now bringing it right back.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that doesn't happen unless you're absolutely exceeding historical turnout, which we've done. And so, look, I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. I mean, if this was 10, 12, 14, 16 years ago, the answer to your question would be yes. Of course, a lack of, big races at the local level, sheriff's races, legislative races, county commission races, and there's no U.S. Senate race this year, Doug. So It's not like that race.
Wow, that's a shock,
Yeah. And I tend to believe that with Trump on the ballot and with the presidential race going on, that we're going to see high turnout like we have. I think that's going to continue, but it's going to be fascinating to see. I'll tell you that.
Well, it will be. And I think one of the things, you hit on it there, and we're not going to sit on it because we'll talk about this at another time. I'm about sick of the argument from Merrick Garland and from the Democratic apparatchik that basically say that voter IDs are bad for turnout, that there's so many voter suppression laws. Georgia has done nothing but increase. Now, here is a real problem, and we don't have enough time today to talk about this, but there's just been, lawsuit filed in, I believe it was Michigan, and could very well be getting ready to have some here in Georgia, because the ballot, the number of folks on the registered to vote exceed the number of registered voters census-wise in the county. And we got several of those places where you're seeing, like, if you have, just to break it down in small terms, if you had 100,000 eligible voters in, from a position of, age and citizenship, position to vote, you're having 115,000 registered. And then what it says is doesn't say that 115,000 are going to vote, but what it says is they've not kept the rolls clean or managed the rolls to make sure that they're actually removing those who've moved out of the county, adding those that have come into the county. And that's been the problem I think a lot of people have. No matter what you feel about elections, both sides can sort of see that issue.
Well, and let's be honest with it. Let's be honest about it. Every time Republicans try to purge voter lists to fix that problem, they get 2 or 3 lawsuits filed against them, and then there's an injunction in federal court. And until that case is adjudicated 2 or 3 years later, all those voters that were supposed to be purged because they're no longer eligible to vote, either because they moved or they're deceased. Yeah, I mean, of course, but it's I think a lot of that's tied up in litigation and when a federal judge, as you well know, says, we're not we're not going to make this purge until the parties have a chance to make their case in court. That slows things out 2 or 3 years. And Doug, once you die, you die.
Right? Yeah, it's not like you're going to come back.
When a voter's deceased, he's deceased, or he or she is deceased before the lawsuit is filed. And guess what? When the lawsuit is adjudicated, that voter is still going to be deceased. So it just, it just it defies basic common sense. But that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah, real funny. I was watching in California in the primary from the other night, the Super Tuesday primary had California, and they had this voter, liberal voter. I voted for Biden, and I did it. And they asked him about how hard it was to vote. He said, "Oh, it wasn't hard at all. I just walked up. I took my ID. I took everything. They didn't even ask me for it." And then he made the honest statement, like Biden saying he was illegal. This gentleman said. He said, I could see how that could be a problem. He said, because if somebody knew it, they could just go, because they never looked at anything. They just took me at my word that I lived at that place. And it was like he admitted on this interview exactly what everybody's been, fearful of. And this was a liberal panel and everything else. Just sort of crazy. All right. Politics out of the side. By the way, at some point in time, and I'm not today because you and I would have way too much fun and we're not going to do it. The No Labels group is vetting their candidates at this point. We'll let them vet, and then we'll come back in on that one. But right now, Chip, we need
we gotta move on, is what you're telling me.
Oh yeah, we got to move on, or you and I would have a big problem here. But we got to move on now because we got to bring back to our Friday's Finest fold. We got to bring in James. James. No, James, you have to talk today. Well, James.
Hey, guys.
I'm glad I got you out of your morning stage there that you're saying goodbye. James, I have to admit to you, I never thought that Kirk Cousins would be coming to Atlanta. I've said it for you. You don't even have to say it. But Kirk Cousins is bringing the bling to Atlanta.
I think I've decided it's better to be delusional and irrational than sad. So I'm not going to be sad about this forever. God,
do you want Skipper now to send you a Falcons jersey?
Yeah, so I can set it on fire. Man, you know what's incredible about this? I saw he signed, and they didn't show the number yet. And I was like, 4 years is a lot, but man, we could have used him for another 4 years. JJ still got to sign, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw it was $184 million. And in my head, I went, okay, as a rational human being, I can't yell at Kwesi, our GM, and Kevin O'Connell for not signing a guy who's 35 years old, coming off an ACL, to $184 million. There was no way the Vikings were going to do that, and I just have to deal with that mentally and emotionally for the next 3 years while I watch us shuffle through Sam Darnold. And for some reason, the ongoing conspiracy that we're going to trade up and get J.J. McCarthy. What is happening? What is happening? It was 3-4 months ago when they were like, Michael Penix might not be a bad idea. Then he stinks it up in the finals and has one of the worst games anyone's ever had in that game. And now all of a sudden, J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback in the draft? What is going on? And now the Vikings are going to trade up. So what are we going to give up? We don't have anything to give up. I can't do it. I'm fine. I think I'm fine.
I tell you, some of the funniest memes this week on social media have been the memes of Justin Jefferson. First, seeing everybody gone, and then the next, hearing that Sam Darnold was going to be his quarterback.
Oh, when I heard that, I was like, I kept seeing all these people say, well, if there's anyone that can fix Sam Darnold, I don't care. It doesn't matter who can fix Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
I know Kevin O'Connell is a genius. I'm not debating that. I love him. I love that he's our head coach. He basically got Kirk Cousins that extra plus million because the last 2 seasons Kirk Cousins has been on one because of the way Kevin O'Connell runs that offense. Yep. But Sam Darnold, for God's sakes, I got to hear him say he's seeing ghosts or something out there on the field again. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm going to mute every Vikings game so I can just watch and cry as the Packers get ahead of us, the Lions get ahead of us, and now probably the Bears will be ahead of us. But on the bright side, you guys paid $184 million to win the NFC South, so that's something.
Hey, I think at this point, Arthur Blank, Chip, what do you think? I think Arthur would have paid most anything to win something.
Yeah, I mean, look, I as an Atlanta Falcons fan, I'm jaded, right? I'm happy to hear that James likes Kirk Cousins so much. I have no reason not to like Kirk Cousins. But to James's point, he's 35 years old. We signed him to a 4-year deal for $184 million. $100 million of that, which is guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
He's coming off a serious injury, and we don't have Justin Jefferson on our team.
You do have Drake London, though.
We got
And
Drake
now
London, and
Rondale Moore and Mooney. You guys just went out.
Yeah, so look, I expect good things from Kirk Cousins in the first year. Hopefully the second year. Does Kirk Cousins have 4 years left in the tank? Probably not. He'll be 38, 39 at that point in time. But, with what we've been dealing with, Doug, in the quarterback rotations, it was worth a shot. And look, I had just resigned ourselves to the fact that we were getting Justin Fields, and I'd finally gotten okay with that, right? I mean, Justin Fields, 25 years old, he grew up here. Kirk Cousins, 35 years old, his wife grew up here. So, both of them have, a lot of ties to Atlanta. Look, we've got a lot of we've spent a lot of political draft capital to get skill position players like Drake London, like Bijan Robinson, like Kyle Pitts. And now we have a quarterback who has been successful and thrown for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns at a lot of different places. And if he comes down here and stinks, then we know that we're jinxed and there's just nothing we can do.
Well, Chip, we also, James, you got to look at one of the things is, by the way, if you haven't heard, Desmond Ridder is now going to another place in which they have forgotten football altogether. And that's in the desert of Arizona. So,
oh my God, what are they doing?
The Cardinals have Desmond Ridder, Murphy.
I saw Bomani Jones tweet. That's a perfect way to tell Kyler Murray you have all the confidence in the world.
Exactly.
Ridder.
Exactly.
But okay, Kyler knows he's number one.
Yeah, number one, baby. We ain't going nowhere. Hey, we got a vote of confidence. Okay, but speaking of, I just have to laugh at this one. We hadn't had a chance to talk about this. Our boy Russell Wilson. I mean, there's so much you can say about this. But the thing that just amazes me first, that he goes to Pittsburgh. Now, number one, anybody could have picked up Russell Wilson for a steal. I mean, $1 million because Denver's on the hook for $80-something million.
It's a great move by anybody who picked him.
Yeah,
just straight up.
But here's the most hilarious part of this whole story. If Pittsburgh was trying to improve their offense, they brought in Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith to run the offense. I mean, if you're a skilled player in Pittsburgh right now, you got to be saying, do you just not like me anymore?
No, they said that last year. Believe it or not, it's an upgrade. Kenny Pickett is horrid. Horrible.
It's kind of the perfect move to have Arthur Smith, right? Because he doesn't care which running back takes the ball, and Pittsburgh has no idea who their running back is, so he's going to mix it up until it works.
Arthur Smith is a classic coach on or classic player of like Madden or something. And I don't care what your name is. I'm just going to keep running plays.
Yeah, that's right.
It's baffling that like they signed him, but also talking about like everybody. I'm sure you all know Steelers fans, how they talk about Steeler Nation is this blue collar tough. We don't screw around. This is the Steeler way. Blah blah blah. Could they have brought somebody in who's never even sniffed the Steeler way in one way or another? Like, he's the furthest thing. If somebody said pick a quarterback who isn't a Steeler, I would say Russell Wilson right off the bat.
Yeah.
It goes to show you where the leadership brass of the Steelers are in their head with regards to Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely, yeah.
This
is your last shot, champ.
And so, I mean, it's just, I mean, having I had George Pickens, on my bench last year, almost all season because Kenny Pickett was throwing to him. Yeah. And, I expected a little more production out of George Pickens, but
Everyone did. I
painful
mean, he came in
loss.
as the golden child next to Garrett Wilson, right? Those
Yeah,
are the two
it was
guys that are going to
painful to
change your
watch.
fantasy team.
Yeah,
Can I say something though?
sure.
We can talk about all these teams making moves, but I want to talk about one team that's actually in your division. Are you guys praying and like every day that you guys have the Panthers in your division? Because are they not the most poorly run franchise? They got rid of Brian Burns for a 2nd and 5th round pick. They got nothing in return for him. While at the same time, they were the worst team in the league. They could have had Caleb Williams or a number 1 pick this year. That's how bad they were. They have no idea what they're doing. And I saw somebody post this yesterday. Did you know that they talked about the resurgence of Baker Mayfield last year?
Yeah.
And how that's why they chose him as their head coach, because he was the offensive coordinator. You know, they had the 22nd or 20th offense in the league last year.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know Tampa had the 20th offense in the league. So, in other words, they got a guy who's going to be below par with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league right now. You guys got to just think to yourself, wow, we just walked into this division. Kirk Cousins is going to roll through this division. New Orleans got worse. And I'm blanking out on the other team right now.
It's just the 4 of them.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay is going to be your only competition. That's it.
And they just signed Mayfield.
You guys are winning right now.
Yeah, they just signed Mayfield to 3 years. I tell you the interesting, as we look at this, I mean, but again, Chip and I are very much jaded Falcons fans. 28-3 is tattooed in our forehead. And we look at it, and technically this year was supposed to be that year. I mean, and we couldn't do
Correct.
anything. And it was just terrible. Another one interesting, don't you got to feel for, it's sort of funny, Jason Kelsey, and I know Kylie, his wife, is just killing this. They bring in Barkley, they bring in this, he's like, why did you do this after I leave?
Listen, the Eagles are going all in, though, with that move, because Saquon's, this is his last stop, or it'll be his last starting stop, probably.
Yeah.
The Eagles, they have to make this is their big decision on, I know it sounds crazy, they're going to have to make a decision on Jalen Hurts right now. Like, he was not the same player last year, and there's questions of his leadership all of a sudden, and I haven't really heard that many people defend him. Saquon Barkley is going to change them, and that's going to be a crazy running backfield. But I don't know, with Kelsey gone and a lot of those big player names that left, I don't know where the Eagles sit.
What do you think about Henry, Chip, going to the Ravens?
I think it's a good fit for him. I think, it's a good fit for Baltimore. It's a good fit for Derrick Henry. We all knew that, especially the way he played his last game in Tennessee, that, he was out of there. And so, yeah, I think it's a good fit. I think it's going to work. And, at some point in time, Baltimore's going to figure out a way to win in the postseason. They haven't done a real good job of doing that so far.
Well, the one thing you can do right now is if you're picking your fantasy football for the fall, do not pick any receiver or anybody for the Baltimore Ravens, because all they're going to do is run. So definitely go the run game there. I'm also always surprised. I know he played at Alabama, and you saw him at Auburn. We saw him a little bit, but Henry is huge. That man is just a massive man.
Oh, he's massive.
I mean, it's
going to be an absurd backfield. So your options are get killed by Derrick Henry or get your ankle snapped by Lamar Jackson. Those are your options? No, thank you.
It is. All right, speaking of dumpster fires, and this is the one that has gotten a lot of play on the mainstream media, especially the ESPNs and everything else in the world. What's Jerry doing in Dallas, James? You're our on-scene reporter in Dallas. What's happening here?
Well, you all saw the viral tweet from Skip Bayless, correct? Have we all seen this?
No, I hadn't seen that one.
Boys, all right, we might have to bleep me out here. There is a tweet, and it was from Skip Bayless, and he wrote, "All in, comma, my ass." Now, we all know that comma is doing the Lord's work, because that is a tough thing to post, Skip. The Dallas Cowboys signed Eric Kendricks today, and that's it. I think that's their only big move. They are all in, apparently, and I think they're waiting, like, we have to sign Dak Prescott. We don't know what to do, and they're just going to hope this season works out. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they got rid
I
of
don't
Pollard.
understand it. They let Pollard go because he had one bad season under Mike McCarthy. Surprise. I don't know. I don't fully understand what they're doing. I just know. I think this is Jerry Jones' way of saying, all right, we're just going to run it back, and if it doesn't work, everybody's getting fired. That has to be it.
Well, it doesn't make sense, a lot of what we're seeing out there. But let's go back to something that we've talked about in I guess a semi-positive up until free agency started. And I mean this sincerely. I didn't want to see Justin Fields come to Atlanta. I just didn't. I didn't think it was a fit. There's a lot of reasons there. But, you got to feel bad in a way for Justin Fields.
Oh, I do. Absolutely.
Justin Fields got screwed over on a team like Chicago that was terrible, number one. Then they played around with it, saying we're going to, maybe get rid of you. We're going to get Caleb Williams. We're going to bring all this in. And then all of a sudden he becomes not even tradable bait when you have Cousins and Wilson and all. Oh, by the way, I got one word for you, James. You could always have your boy Darnold and get Garoppolo, and they could actually fight it out for the quarterback spot.
Why are you doing this to me? Why do you want to even put that bad juju in the air? If the Vikings were to sign Jimmy Garoppolo, I honestly, I don't have a lot of money, but I would fly out to throw hands with everyone in the Vikings.
But anyway, back to our field. Chip and James, have y'all ever seen a player just sort of get – it reminds me of NASCAR. I love NASCAR. I've watched NASCAR all my life. But it's like, they're going down and they have the whole field's in the two-by going down in the turn. And one person, they move just a little bit, and that guy right behind gets out of the lane, not intending to, and everybody else closes real quickly, and they just get this guy here, and they just start doing this. What Chase Elliott, by the way, has done all year, for those of you NASCAR fans, he's picked the wrong line on every race. I've never seen a football player stop that didn't do something illegal, immoral, or against a fall as fast as I've seen Justin Fields.
Yeah, he's a victim of circumstance, really. He's a victim of what the quarterback market was this year, right? And when I say the quarterback market, I mean the free agent market and the quarterbacks that are available in the draft. It's a quarterback rich draft, and we don't always have those. When Desmond Ridder got chosen 2 years ago, I think he was the second or third quarterback off the board, and the Falcons got him in the third round. You're going to have three quarterbacks off the board through 5 picks this time. So, look, he's 25 years old. And I think he's getting better. Do I think he's a quarterback that is going to lead a team to a Super Bowl? I don't know that I'm willing to go that far, but I think the kid deserves better than what he's been given in Chicago, and I think he's going to get an opportunity. I can't sit here today and tell you where that is, but I clearly the book is not written and closed yet on Justin Fields, and I think he's got the ability to find a new team. Maybe not quite the path that it looked like he was going to find at one point in time, but I still think he's got several years ahead of him, and he's got the ability to win a lot of games.
James,
the Broncos and the Giants should be looking right now.
Okay, well, I got a question for you, James, and this is a philosophical question. It's not why do bad things happen to good people, but when you see a Justin Fields and you see a Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And again, I know Deshaun for years. I still believe inherently somewhere beyond the Gucci clothes and everything else that he does now, there's the kid from Gainesville, that was there, but it's lost somewhere. But you see somebody who's sort of skirted problems his whole time, arrogance. The only thing you see him doing in the offseason is modeling clothes with his model girlfriend, basically in Italy and everywhere else. And then you see Justin Fields, who just seemingly keeps trying his best. And you see these two where he's at Cleveland, and now actually Cleveland added Judy and another. It's just, it doesn't make sense, James, does it?
It's the Greg Hardy thing. This to me always comes back to Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy was was a horrible person. There was proof of him doing horrific things, but because he was really, really good at football, the Cowboys signed him. This is what happened with Deshaun Watson. They were like, oh, well, nobody's going to take him. We'll just throw a bunch of money at him, see if he'll come to us. And sure enough, that's where he goes, is the Cleveland Browns. They made one of the worst decisions in franchise history. And Justin Fields has to sit here. Personally, I think Justin Fields is going to end up getting a backup role somewhere, and he's going to take over because that team stinks, and he's going to turn his career around. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm rooting for because I like him. I still don't understand why Denver and the Giants aren't going after him. I don't care what anyone says about Daniel Jones. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's proven that once. But also, and I know this sounds crazy, but if you're the Los Angeles Rams,
yeah,
I know you don't have a ton of picks to give up. Obviously, they proved that. They said screw the picks, and they won a Super Bowl. But if you're the Los Angeles Rams and you have a genius like Sean McVay, and you have probably, a year or two left with Stafford, maybe it's the right move. Maybe it could save his career. Can we talk about another quarterback, though?
Who's that?
That might save the future of America? And Aaron Rodgers, who's basically going to end up becoming Flash Gordon.
Hey,
I mean,
look, he gets
quarterback for the New York Jets, saves the world.
I still have hope that no labels will consider him for president.
Chip, could you and I come up with a baseball football tandem there?
Oh wow! Don't even get me started. Yeah, that would. Aaron wouldn't do that to himself.
No, you and I would get on a plane to wherever, whatever hut he's in the dark room.
Aaron's smarter. He's smarter than that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing though. But here's the deal. And for anybody out there, and this is a plug for sports and plug for politics. Politics, as Chip has always was one to say, that once you get into U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, governor to a point, or president, it's the NFL, baby. I mean, it is. I mean, and for Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's the top of the list, and everything is on stage at that point. And it was amazing to me from the minute Aaron Rodgers was even mentioned in this, all of a sudden there were about 400 reports on what he did or did not say about the Sandy Hook shooting 14 years ago.
Yes.
And it's like, Aaron, please stay away from this. Only those of us who have been warped by society live in this swamp. You don't want to come in this swamp because it is so bad right now.
Yeah, when a football game is done, concluded, they turn the lights off in the stadium and everybody leaves. You step out on that stage and you can never leave, and the lights are always on.
Oh yeah. It's just not even something you can look at.
I just don't get I don't know. Just say no now. Like, just say no. Don't say don't be like, his weird way of being like kind of mystical or whatever stupid thing he's thinking of that day. I'm going to let the American people think I want to do this and that. Just go play. The Jet fans will not be able to handle this. They won't. They will melt into a billion pieces, and we'll have to pick them up one by one and glue them back together. Aaron Rodgers has to play at least a freaking 2 downs for the Jets. For God's sakes, please. I'm not a Jets fan, and I do not like Aaron Rodgers. I think that's been pretty clear on this program. But he has to play some time for the Jets.
Well, yeah. Greeny on ESPN was dying the other day. I mean, it was just when he came out. Of course he was. I mean, it was pretty bad. Hey, one of the quick questions I want to get in before we get going here, and it's something that's been a theme to this discussion of free agency, and we haven't even talked about running backs. By the way, the only one that's been treated worse, in my opinion, than Justin Fields has been Aaron Jones at the Packers.
Absolutely.
And, the way, leaving it out there, I mean, no place to go, that kind of thing. And also Mixon with the Bengals. Running backs that were held, and then released, after the moves we're already making. And, you got to feel bad for folks like this. But here's my question, to sort of end this. And Chip alluded to it earlier. Have we gotten now to where there's no such thing as drafting and building? And I say that because, Chip, you made reference to, and James, you did a little bit, but Chip made reference to the fact of, that you basically you get one. If it doesn't work in 2 years, we'll cut you loose and go do something else. Is the idea of a bill? Are we past the point with the fan bases that fan bases will allow you the luxury of drafting and building a team for 3 or 4 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Chip, you want to go first on this one?
I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, you basically got a year to rebuild, and if you don't, and I say a year to rebuild. I mean, I don't know that it's realistic that anybody thinks the Carolina Panthers, who were the worst team in the NFL last year, can win the Super Bowl next year. But they better show progress, right? Even though they got a new coach. They got a new coach, 1 year to rebuild. Because if you're not showing progress in 2 years with the money that's being spent now on these franchises and the amount of money that they're paying in free agency and the contracts that are signed out of the draft, you don't have time. So you got year and a half. So yeah, Doug, I think those days are gone.
That is. James?
Well, no, what I wanted to say was it's such an interesting thing because in basketball, they give you so much time to rebuild.
Yeah.
They really do. They give you, like, you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, that team is in second place or first place right now in the West because they were given time to turn around and make picks. The problem with the NFL is how quickly teams are doing it. The Bengals turned around in 1 year after getting Joe Burrow. The Kansas City Chiefs were a good team, but it wasn't working. Then Patrick Mahomes comes in. They have 3 Super Bowls. The Bills are constantly in the AFC Championship game after, 2 years of Josh Allen? And then you have, I know I'm blanking out. The Eagles turned around immediately after they lost Doug Peterson. Like, it's happening so quickly. The same with the Texans that the other teams can't be given an excuse. And that's the reason.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. All right. One thing we're going to save till next week, folks, and James, write a note on this one for us because I want to get into NIL next week because
yes, sir.
You had Saban on the Hill on NIL and also some interesting comments out of Kirby Smart on NIL and how it's affecting recruiting and everything. So we'll get to that next week, but I want to get a final round of thoughts here. James, we'll start with you for final round after this week.
I already hated Atlanta because of 1998, but now when I see you, it's on. Let me just make that super clear. I don't want to talk to anybody from Atlanta besides you two. All right? Georgia in general is already on the board. All right? Georgia in general. I know you guys aren't technically from Atlanta, but whatever. My point is I'm against all of you, and I'm going to fight you forever on this, and I'm rooting for Kirk Cousins to go 0-17.
In Atlanta, we might be able to understand it. But, James, aren't you going on a world tour in which you're coming through Georgia this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I'm going to be there in, I want to say March, a year from now. So when I see you, like, I'm going to be upset because you guys probably just won the Super Bowl, and I don't know what I'm going to do mentally. But, yes, when I come and visit you guys, I will pretend to like everyone.
I love it. All right, Chip, your turn.
Look, Kirk Cousins, 35 years old. He's coming off an Achilles injury. The irony after what happened last year to Aaron Rodgers, who was old and then had an Achilles injury. I just hope that Kirk Cousins can make it through a game before he gets injured. And so, my fantasy football team every year is the all ACL team. And I think James misspoke earlier in the show when he said, Kirk Cousins is coming off an ACL tear. He's coming off an Achilles tear. So I hope that doesn't jinx his ACLs because he's got 2 of them. I hope that doesn't jinx Kirk Cousins' ACLs for when he puts on a Falcons jersey. But that seems to be kind of the path we're going down. So my closing thought is I hope Kirk Cousins can stay healthy and provide a little excitement for the Falcons next year.
There we go. I have 2 closing thoughts. One being I now know what it's like to experience an injury I've never experienced. I've been in athletics for most all of my life and going anything. I had never pulled, and you've heard about this, especially in football and others, your quad, the top of your thigh, that muscle right there. About a week and a half ago, my foot slipped out from under me. I didn't fall, but it was like if you're on a tile floor and there's water or something there, and you know how your foot will slip and it makes you your body tenses. Well, undoubtedly, I tensed and tore and stretched those muscles right there in the top. I can walk, but golly, it is uncomfortable. So now I hear all these football players, they said they have the quad injury and they can't come back for 3 or 4 weeks. I now have complete sympathy in that. The other one is this. Closing thoughts. If you're ever in Kansas City in the next little bit, it looks like you're going to be having a new steakhouse in town, 1587 Prime. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes set to open a new steakhouse in Kansas City, Missouri. And with that, that's the final word here on Friday. I'll just leave that right where it's at as it goes. But that's it for Friday's Finest. Glad to have you on board. Always fun time with my cohorts, James and Chip. Always good to see y'all. Y'all all be good, and we'll see you next time on the Doug Collins Podcast.